I am missing the Denver air right now. It is 91 degrees down here with 95% humidity. It is painful.
Oof.
We have
Well,
everything but oxygen and humidity, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It's hard to get the humidity when you have that, light of oxygen. I think it like doesn't
you're
allow the
spoiled now,
moisture to get
Mike.
trapped. I
You're spoiled
am.
now.
I am.
Yes,
I'm
you
loving
are.
it. I'm loving it.
Okay, well, I'm going to bring the meeting to order since it's 5 o'clock. Thank you all for being here. I imagine a few other people will join. Um, I am going to, I think we're in recording now. I'm going to start with just a few updates for everybody. And as you all know, we didn't have a meeting in May, so I gave you the YouTube for the meeting in April. And that, of course, was our presentation from Denver Water and a lot of the landscaping changes that we could do and other things. So today's meeting is extra packed because we didn't have one in May. So I'm going to start just really quickly with a couple quick updates. Uh, the I'm going to bump this up from the last thing. So we are part of this group of stakeholders and volunteers who brought up the idea that we would do a Cherry Creek 150 in addition to the Colorado 150, and it's actually kind of tucked under that. This has been such a fun project, and a lot of people have worked on it. And I am just going to share 1 second of tell me when we can see this. I stopped in and talked to Richard today. Richard, this is what I was talking about. We've done this deep dive into 150-year history of Cherry Creek, and I put together these history timelines. So this is even before we became a state. We had a lot going on with Native peoples and transfer through the area. And so we have a lot of information on these, a lot of learn more links and QR codes. And then we go through really the 150-year time frame or this area when you can see some dairies and it was the wagon trail. We have a lot of information about the fact that this area was an area that was flood prone and therefore really affordable for families that were otherwise restricted out of some neighborhoods and could afford to get in this area. We have a lot about the big flood, and here you can see at the top a house literally going into the creek. We have some discussion about the Great Depression, the 29 crash when Buell turned the property over to the city because he couldn't carry it because all the stock market had crashed. So they turned it into a sand pit and then a dump. Then in the 50s, he got the property back from the city in order with a promise to clean it up. That's how we got it back. And this just follows that we have the dam, the Cherry Creek Dam was completed in 1950. That changed everything except the investors didn't trust it until we had a test flood. But as soon as Buell started building, we had Sears, there was a tunnel underneath First Avenue. And you can follow this timeline that we have put together. And the most fascinating people are going to be talking about this piece of it, which I call the retail revolution, known as the retail revolution. And we've got Pena there, Secretary Pena is going to be there, Jerry Wrench, Alan Gass. We've got Carol Finneran and Paul Ramsey, retailers, and we will be talking about how it changed from a time when nobody would build here to what we have now. What was the game changer? And according to Nick, it's really when we got our first hotel. How did we grow up and become what we are now? So, and this is the full story, this timeline, 150 years at a glance. And it's just going to be really fun. So I will stop sharing this, but we'll get all this information to you all. Oh, Bob has joined. Hi, Bob. Bob was great. Didn't have enough time together, but I spent a few hours going through his treasure trove at his office. And Bob, I still might come and borrow a couple things from you tomorrow or ask you to bring a few things. So this is just going to be a really rich, deep dive into the 150-year history of Cherry Creek. And the other panel, so I'm doing the retail revolution with Pena Wrench and Ramsey and Finneran and Alan Gass. And then we've got what's called the Untold Stories. This is a panel discussion on the families that were able to move here, who in many cases were deed restricted out of living in other areas of the city, and they could afford to because it was flood prone. And so we have a lot of Jewish and Greek immigrant and Black families who settled here, and they are going to have a discussion. We also have an article that we produced called A Neighborhood of Nations, which is about that topic and how those people were here to start their businesses and live in Cherry Creek. That will be available. That is already up on the website at the CCN Neighbors on the Cherry Creek North website under History. You can take a look at that, and all of this stuff will at some point be uploaded. History Colorado is going to be there filming, and if you've got anything, any stories to share, Brooks, I'm sure you do, you can show up, you can bring stuff. They will take your story, they will record it, they will scan your documents. And so with this amazing group of people coming together, we already have like 177 reservations. So I know you all have received that. If you have not, please let me know and I'll send it to you. But we have up to 275 reservation slots. So it's going to be a really interesting night. It's open house format. You can come in, grab a cookie, a drink, walk around, enjoy some of those panel discussions, talk to different people, and hopefully it'll be something that is preserved by History Colorado. Maybe enough new information that coalesces this history for History Colorado that they'll actually have a little special History Colorado presentation sometime about that. So I wanted to bump that up to the beginning because it's really important. So keep an think about whether you can make it. I know it's supposed to rain, but at least it won't be 100 degrees if it rains. Couple of other quick things. Cherry Creek Arts Festival is coming. We often have them do a quick presentation and talk about cherry arts, and of course it will be happening and done before we meet again. So this Jimi Hendrix behind me is an old Denny Dent that was done when Denny Dent was rocking and rolling and painting in the early 80s. So a lot of the art that we have, we've enjoyed from the Cherry Creek Arts Festival. So get out there and enjoy it, and have a couple of drinks. And what you'll hear tomorrow night from some of the panelists is that it's not always the best thing for the businesses, but they still love the way that it embraces a culture and a statement about the culture. So, but it's not great for business, frankly. So anyway, I wanted to mention that. I think that's about it. I would like to turn it over. I see Councilwoman Sawyer's here. Thank you for being here. And I'd like to turn it over to you for updates.
Well, thanks, you guys. It's great to see everyone. Happy summer. I mean, it's not like technically summer yet, but it sure feels like it is. Um, I hope everyone is doing well. A couple of things going on around our neighborhoods in celebration of the 4th of July. So if you are around this weekend on Saturday morning, Lowry holds Independence Day parade through the Lowry neighborhood. So it will be at about 10:30 on Saturday morning. So come to Sunset Park or Crescent Park, check it out. And, it's just a really good, fun family time with biking and food and community and all the things. Normally, it always happens the Saturday before 4th of July. And normally I'm out of town for the Saturday before 4th of July because for the 4th of July is the one of 2 weeks a year that city council is closed. Those are our vacation weeks. And so I'm always out of town with my family. And this year, because of the way 4th of July falls on a Saturday, It's actually going to be this weekend instead. So if you are around, please join us in Lowry at Crescent Park at 10:30 Saturday morning for 4th of July parade. That should be really, really fun. And I want to just acknowledge and give a huge shout out to the Lowry United Neighborhoods organization who puts that on every year. Our office is honored to sponsor it, but we are not the ones who do it. The residents are the ones who put it together. The neighborhood organization that sort of umbrella neighborhood organization for all of Lowry. So I just want to acknowledge them and all of the hard work that they do to bring community to all of us. So that will be really fun. And then, of course, it's Pride this weekend. So if you are going to be around on Sunday morning on 17th Avenue, join us for the Pride Parade. My kids and I will be marching, I think, with the mayor's office. So that will be really fun. For those of you who don't know, one of my daughters is gay. So we are very excited to celebrate her and do and be good allies for her. And we love to walk in the parade whenever we can. So we're going to do that on Saturday morning. And what else is going on? There's a lot going on downtown at the city. I actually have two charter changes that I have proposed that you, if referred by council, would vote on in November. The first one is a charter change amendment that just clarifies the responsibilities of Denver Labor. So right now, Denver Labor, what the charter says is Denver Auditor's Office does basically whatever city council deems for them to do in ordinance. And there are a number of different things that they do and have done since the 1950s. And I feel like they should be clarified in the charter. So it's a really simple charter change that just clarifies, Denver Labor's place in the auditor's office. And then the second one is a change to our budget process. And the budget process the timeline would change a little bit, and which would give the community, and more specifically, would give the community an opportunity to provide comment and let the mayor's office know what you are interested in investing your tax dollars in our budget from the very beginning. Right now, there is only one place for community to share your budget priorities, and it is on the last day of the hearing at City Council. Different things, including ensure that there is a public process run by the mayor's office as they are developing the budget. And then there would be, can you guys hear me? I'm getting a sign that says my internet connection is unstable. Okay,
You're
great.
okay right now.
Great. And then it also addresses, so there's a charter change and then companion ordinance. And one of the things that the companion ordinance addresses is what happens in the event that projected revenues are not reaching the levels of appropriated revenues. So let me explain what that means. In November of every year, City Council approves what's called the long bill. And the long bill is literally a list of every dollar that goes to every city agency across the city of Denver. And the long bill is developed during the budget process. So in that budget process, City Council, and the mayor's office will come together. The mayor puts together the budget, proposes it. And what it does is it says, Dottie's going to get this much money and Parks and Rec is going to get this much money, et cetera. And so the long bill formalizes that in ordinance for the following year. What happens when we project what money is coming in and we don't reach that level? This is what we have seen the last couple of years. So what this will do is put a two-tiered process in place. If the budget is, and this is a very technical term, I refer to as out of whack. If the budget is out of whack by 2%, then the mayor's office needs to come to City Council and publicly provide a very clear set of pieces of information. We actually took the language from the state. It's a requirement for the governor to go to the JBC and do the same thing when the state budget is out of whack. And they will have to provide information on how they're going to get back into whack. If the budget is out of whack by 5%, then city council needs to reappropriate the dollars even if it's in the middle of a year. So what that does is it really helps with transparency, it helps with accountability, and ensures that we have a balanced budget. Because what we've seen is the budget has become significantly out of whack over the last couple of years. So working on those two things. And then I think finally I will leave Abby. Thank you for being here, Abby. Good to see you. To talk a little bit more about the licensure proposal, the changes. But the other big piece of legislation that we have in front of us at City Council right now is focused on municipal sentencing. And it is, I think, very concerning. So a little bit of background, the Colorado State Supreme Court, in a decision that is referred to as the Camp decision, said that municipal sentences cannot be more strict than state sentences. So if there is theft on the municipal level and there is theft on the state level, those sentences have to be the same. We have some council members who took that and went a little bit beyond that to change a number of different things in the Denver Revised Municipal Code. I have some concerns about it. I think what we should have done is we should have aligned with the Camp decision, and then we should have put together a commission to go through the Denver Revised Municipal Code and have conversations about each of these different things. That's not what happened. So I will be a no on Monday night. I was a no this past Monday night on first reading. I suspect it will pass. So just so you know that it is happening, I think one of my biggest concerns is that most people don't know what's even happening. I think I've seen like one newspaper article about it, and that doesn't feel fair to you as my residents. So I have some concerns about that. So I'll be a no. I suspect it is going to pass. It will not be, the end of the world, but I do think that more work will need to be done to ensure that we're reasonably aligning with the state law where necessary, and also ensuring that we have the ability to continue to have a safe city, and that there is enforcement that is realistic. Now, there are some things like smoking on the 16th Street Mall that you and I do not care about, and it is unreasonable that someone should potentially spend 300 days in jail for smoking on the 16th Street Mall, right? But there are other things that you and I care very much about, like theft and domestic violence and things like that, that get very, very technical. And that's where I'm really struggling with it. They have made a lot of changes. They have gotten to the mayor's office to neutral from opposition. I still think that the mayor's office should have vetoed it because I think there's a community process issue here. So I've talked a lot. I know there's a lot going on, but I wanted to at least flag that for you guys so you are aware of all the things this big summer, lots going on around the city right now. What questions do you have for me? You guys
Councilwoman,
are so quiet.
I
What's
know.
going on?
It's a smaller group than usual. I know the mayor is having his RNO gig tonight, and so we had to choose one or the other. But so there are some people that are probably at that that I have heard from. I wanted to find out, can you stay for the excise and license conversation or not?
Yes, I will be here. I will be probably off camera and just listening in. Abby knows, and I have said I am a no on this proposal as well. I have been very clear about that. I think it is a reasonable proposal for downtown, and I think that we will struggle in our residential neighborhoods where we happen to have, nightlife events or bars and restaurants that sometimes have live events that I don't think would be fair to the residents, and I have some concerns about the process of good neighbor agreements at all, right? And that the onus would, in this case, and I've told this to Abby before, that I feel like the onus would be on the victims to, protect yourselves. And I don't think that that's fair to you. So I get why they want to do it downtown. And I think it makes a lot of sense downtown, but it has to make sense for my residents too. And it just doesn't, in my opinion. That said, I want to just acknowledge that our Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection has done a fantastic job of putting together a very realistic proposal, and they've worked really, really hard on it. So, my no is not a reflection of the work that they have done at all. all. It is really just about sort of, I gave three examples. Wings Over the Rockies was one, Choppers was one in Cherry Creek East, and a bar up on Colfax, East Colfax was another one. It's just these are places that have the potential to be live music venues that are directly across the street, or in some cases across an alley from a protected district. And I don't think that it's fair to my residents that even 12 times a year they may have to put up with things happening until 4 a.m. So that is how I feel about it. So if I do have to run away, now you guys know. And I've already had this conversation with Abby so many times. And actually, I do want to also acknowledge Robin in the Cherry Creek East Neighborhood Association, who I had some back and forth with, particularly about choppers, that I forwarded to Abby. So the excise and license, no, what do we call them now? Licensing and
Licensing and
consumer
consumer
protection.
protection. Yeah.
Sorry, I keep messing that up. So licensing and consumer protection is aware, and they, are in the loop on the conversations that are going on and the concerns with our residents. So I will be a no on it, but I do, want you guys to hear this proposal because I suspect that it will pass as well. I'm one of 13.
Oh, dear. Well, and when is it coming up to council?
I'm going to leave all of that to Abby. I believe
Okay,
they went to committee
because
this
we
week.
might lose you, I'm
Yep.
going to flip this one thing. Abby, I'm sorry. I'm going to flip this one other point on our agenda. I want to just talk a little bit about the Colorado Boulevard BRT
Oh, yeah.
and the mounting opposition of neighborhoods and areas adjacent or in proximity in some way to the boulevard. So what we have talked about in Cherry Creek North was, going out and taking a survey of the residents that would be consistent with what the board has concluded, which is we really do not like the dedicated lane option that CDOT put forth. I do think this is something that the steering committee should pick up and run with. We don't want to lose all the money for the improvements on Colorado Boulevard because God knows we need improvements on Colorado Boulevard. It's terrible. But if we can keep it from the dedicated lane option, we might be able to get some benefits without losing the transit lanes for cars. So what I'd like to do is just tell everybody here, Larry, I'm glad you're here. I don't see Mary. And we have others who can go back to their constituent organizations. We have a lot of representation by Cherry Creek East. Bob, thank you for being here for Country Club because I know that Rob is down at the RNO meeting with the mayor. And so we really need to get these, to get enough support for this position of the only option that we really could stomach is the no dedicated lane option. But we don't want to necessarily lose all this money for the improvements of the bus stops and the boulevard and the buses and so on. So I would like to have you all take this back to your organizations and please weigh in so that we can have a vote next time at the July steering committee meeting that would sign on to this and have all the RNOs and the steering committee taking this quote official position with respect to that option. So think about it. I know other people are talking about we don't want anything and we want no change, but just drive the boulevard a little bit and see what kind of improvements we might be able to get just in the boulevard and the bus stops. I mean, some of these places have no bus stops at all. It's just or sidewalks. So
Lou, quick question.
Yeah.
That the no dedicated lanes option is option 3 as they are presenting it.
I think so. Yeah, I don't have that right in front of me, but I believe it is option 3.
I
Yeah.
believe so. Okay, thank you.
And
One
we
other thing-
also have been fighting bike lanes. I know that some people wanted bike lanes included on that. I think that's just ridiculous idea. The city's already spent a ton of money to put bike lanes down the Garfield. So I mean, we just we just need to do what is more common sense. And but I would like, if possible, I know that Cherry Creek North is working on that. So if the other RNOs can work on that too, and we can take a temperature so that we can bring back and have that discussion again in July and maybe take an official position, that would be great.
I would also like to throw out there one of the things that Stuart had recommended. I think Stuart had said it, but it was one of the things that I brought up at the BRT meeting, is to consider the idea of, if there is a route, possibly having a little detour off Colorado Boulevard onto First Avenue, then over to Steel Street, and then out at Cherry Creek North Drive. And that little loop would actually give a great amount of ridership that is so much closer to the major center here in Cherry Creek.
Yeah.
The 40 is just so essential. And I'm hoping that East West, Cherry Creek Shopping Center, Simon, and Cherry Creek North also will support something like this, because they have such a large economic employment base that can be using this. So if we
Right.
can include that in the
Actually, I don't want
recommendation,
to include
thank you.
that right now, Meredith. That's a really different discussion, and we are talking about the 40 right now and at Transportation Solution. It's just different than the position I'm asking people for now, which is the CDOT recommendations. And the
Right.
40 is a different conversation, but you're right. It's just right now, what I'm asking for is for the support for the CDOT recommendations. I will also tell you all that the Spear Leetsdale corridor transit line is currently building. That stakeholder group is being requested to come to the table. So you know, this we need transit. So these conversations are going to be ongoing. But I think, correct me, Richard or Councilwoman, if I'm wrong here, but I think we do have a meeting coming up soon at the
We do.
TS level for the 40.
Yes, we do.
Yep.
So those are ongoing, and Stuart is in Paris right now. Brooks?
I had something to add. We now have a proposal for one of our gateways at Colorado Boulevard and Bayot. It's the northwest corner.
Yes, yeah, I'm
There is,
well aware, right? We have that under a development agreement, and they've asked for some changes.
and we have a concept drawings from the architects. But I want to be sure that that is considered for a stop in Cherry Creek East. That would be the major stop, I believe. That's also on an east-west bike route.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole concept of the gateway was really to, I think, not just symbolic, but to maybe act as a sort of a plaza with some artwork and so on. And I know Stuart had visited, I think it was Phoenix, where they'd done that, and they actually had some sculpture and artwork that sort of symbolizes something about the neighborhood. And we've talked about this before.
Right, right.
So I guess my point is, I want to make sure that these stops are not just indiscriminately placed.
No, good point, Brooks. The actual artwork in my researching for the last couple of months that I've been doing, I came up upon the original Cherry Creek North drawing, which is really lovely. I don't see if I know I have a picture of it here. And it was one that I sent to Bob recently. So what do you think about this for a concept? Remember that the gateway decisions are a community decision. So
Yes.
everybody who has a gateway, we don't want one looking one way, one looking another way, one saying this, one saying that. But that will be, the only thing, and I have this in the document that it is a Cherry Creek Steering Committee process. But, when we come together, I don't know if I can get this in a way where you can see it. But this was the historic first Cherry Creek.
Yep.
And there was something that struck me about it. Bob says it looks a little bit like DCPA, but it looks to me different enough that maybe this is something when we get to that point, we are certainly not there now.
Mhm.
But when we get to that point, maybe we think about it because we do want this to be something that is a community decision about the culture and the artistic newer vibe. We don't want to, even if they're gorgeous, Bob, but we don't want to be country club, right? We don't want those, something that just looks like those gates. So, but good point, Brooks. Thank you for bringing it up. And in the development agreement that I drafted for Cherry Creek East, there is a provision, I call it light it, wet it. You've got to give us a space to put the gateway. You got to light it and wet it. And we'll tell you what it's going to be. And obviously, we'll probably end up with some sort of, I can just do a quick little 501c3 or pull one off the shelf that we can use to actually come together and once we're ready, because we're going to be ready over at Cherry Creek West at some point, since they're doing infrastructure first. So
Right.
really exciting. Hang on to that excitement. It's going to be a while before that building is out of the ground, before Cherry Creek West infrastructure is done. But we have to think about it when we're talking about the vibrant bond monies that are going into the University First intersection. We need to think about it. What is that, where are we going to light it, wet it on that property, and what's it going to look like, and how does it relate to that crossing? So same with this new development, Brooks. To your point, if we're going to have a bus stop there, where do we hold this placeholder for this gateway concept? So it's a very exciting thing that this is finally, moving forward. And so, get your wheels and juices flowing. Come to the event tomorrow night and kind of think about the history of how this area became what is it, Councilwoman? It's the second highest tax base in the city after the airport.
That's right.
So that's a lot, right?
Yes,
That's
it
a
is.
lot.
Per
And
capita. If
and
you take out per capita, right, by the number of people who live there, then it's downtown, and then Cherry Creek is the third. But per capita is the second highest revenue generating source in the city and county of Denver.
so it's a big deal. It's exciting for us all. And so put a pin holder in that. And with that, any questions about BRT, that, Councilwoman?
Lou, if I can just add, I want to say thank you so much for your advocacy on this. It is very important that we do not lose these potential dollars. I think it's really, really strategic of us to be having this conversation now and to make sure that we're all on the same page, which is we do not want the dedicated lanes at this time. Ridership has to go up. We have to be able to see the value of it before dedicated lanes are put in. But we want those dollars to refresh all of the boulevard and all of those bus stops and all of the things. So it's really important that we just don't say no. It is important that we say not yet. Show us the data first. Let's make it successful first. And how we make it successful is by making it attractive so that people actually want to ride it and feel safe on it. So thank you for pointing that out. And I did forget one thing that I wanted to flag for everyone really, really quickly. And I'm happy to come back in July. I mean, I'll be here in July anyway, but you know what I mean. And talk a little bit more about it. Councilmember Cashman and I have partnered with the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure to do a traffic study of University between First and Alameda. specifically looking at the intersections of Cherry Creek West, Cherry Creek North Drive and Cherry Creek South Drive. So there, Fair and Piers, I think will probably be doing the work because I work with them every time we do a traffic study, and I was really hoping it was going to be Cherry Creek East that we did, but the Excel undergrounding project has messed up traffic flows because Ellsworth is closed right there in Cherry Creek East now. So we can't do a traffic study where there's a road that's closed. So we're going to take those dollars, and we've partnered with Cashman's office and Dottie, and we are looking at that space to see what we can do, particularly while Cherry Creek West is being built and while the First and University intersection has the bond project and investment to kind of do all of this at the same time to make improvements to Cherry Creek Drive South and Cherry Creek Drive North potentially. So stay tuned for more on that, but I did just want to flag it for you. Sorry, I
Question
forgot about that. I'll
clarifying
stop talking now.
something. So when you're also looking at the worst parts of that intersection, one of the things, and it happens going north and then going west on Spear, is that you also have those turn lanes, even though they're double, that fill up and spill over, so that westerly most lane gets clogged. And I don't know, so I'm just asking how the traffic study, does that leave that out, or is that part of the traffic study that is part of the
No, it's
intersection?
It is a little bit of both. We're trying to dovetail with the Department of Finance and the bond team. They are aware of this as well. They have not put out the RFP yet for First and University, so we are on this traffic study trying to catch up to where Cherry Creek West is. And the Department of Finance is also trying to catch up to where Cherry Creek West is, but that RFP has to go out first. So two separate, really three separate projects that will all dovetail to, I think, bring some meaningful change there. But we wanted to make sure that it got done in the same time frame so that we could catch up with Cherry Creek West. As most of you know, Cherry Creek Drive North is a private road. So it's really Cherry Creek Drive South that is the challenge, but there's that completely cattywampus left-hand turn that like encompasses both of them and is a hot mess, and none of us understand what's going on there. So that is really what we're trying to look at and attack. I also think, and I said this in the meeting, we need a right turn arrow when you are going north onto University as west on Cherry Creek Drive South. So you're west on Cherry Creek Drive South, you hit the T intersection at University, and then you go right. But in order to go right, you have to pull like halfway into the intersection and definitely across the crosswalks in order to see the oncoming traffic that's already traveling north on University. We need a right turn arrow there, a dedicated time when people can go right there safely and pedestrians are not crossing. So it's things like that that we're going to take a look at. I am happy to talk more about this next month or as it starts to roll out, but I did want to flag for everybody that it's happening.
Great.
Well, on behalf of the 1,000 addresses that are only served by Cherry Creek South Drive, I want to say you are a rock star. And thank you. And Paul's daughter lives in my building, so he knows the intersections well. I've been talking with Molly over at Doty. Thank you most sincerely.
I also want to acknowledge Chris Nicholson, who is here, who joined us, who's our RTD board, on our RTD board. And so, Chris, we've already talked a little bit about the 40 and the conversations going on. So, but I'm glad you joined us. This will be recorded and I'll send the recording so you can catch up on some of those thoughts and comments. I'm going to move us now, Abby. Thank you for your patience. I thought I would try to get her earlier so she wouldn't have to listen to all this, but we really like you here, Abby. So with that, let me introduce Abby Soyson, who is here on behalf of, what are we calling it now? Licensing and Consumer Protection. Why do those seem like there's just some of this going on, especially in this discussion? So just to set this up, we in Cherry Creek North have worked a lot on every single restaurant, hotel that has any outside space, any rooftops, any of those, when they apply for a liquor license or a cabaret, we go in, we enter into a good neighbor agreement. We have a neighborhood full of residences, and we have the district next to a protected district. And I live on Clayton Street. Forget Me Not is lovely and it's packed. It's going to be reconfigured at some point because the building's going to be torn down and rebuilt. But it is the hot place, and people are out there talking and playing music and everything. I can hear it, but at least it goes off at a reasonable time. And so in our good neighbor agreements, we require that all exterior sounds cease at a particular time, and they take it indoors. We want to support the businesses, so we don't want them to shut down at 10 o'clock on a weeknight, but we just want the sound that is outside to stop. And now that we have all these high-end condos and apartments where people, want to be able to open their windows, that sound has been an issue, and we will continue to dog that issue. So the real change that Abby's going to be talking about is how do people apply for even those licenses so that we can come in, because it became really difficult to find somebody to talk to in the applicant space to be able to work with them. Now, I know a lot of the liquor licensing lawyers from my days of lawyering. So usually I call them and say, hey, are you representing this new sushi place? And they're, oh, yeah, we are. Well, we need to talk, because it's not easy to find the applicant contact information to reach out to them and to start engaging in these discussions about these good neighbor agreements. There have also been some rulings that limit what portions of those actually go on the face of the license. It's only those things that are on the face of the license that are enforced by licensing department, regardless of what its name is. And so we have to be careful, because even though they're enforceable, a lot of times what we do to enforce it is we call the police, they issue a ticket, and the establishment's like, we don't care. We'll pay the ticket. We'll pay the fine. How do we get real redress? How do we draft these documents so that there's real protection for our neighborhood? So as we listen to this presentation by Abby, and Abby, please tell us how we do that as you go through this. Because the last thing, Richard and I have talked about this, Richard at the bid, about how horrible it would be if people are hanging around till 4 a.m, even if they can't buy a drink after 1 a.m, they'll go out to their car, they'll get a little weed or a little whatever they're carrying in their car, and they'll go back in. And all of a sudden, all of our wonderful, quiet part of the neighborhood is impacted. And the budget for the bid is impacted because they do a great job of making sure somebody's around for protection. So Abby, those are our big, big, big concerns. And they have it in Cherry Creek East too, because of choppers, but we have a lot of it right in Cherry Creek North. So thank you for being here. I'm going to make you a co-host in case, do you want to share anything?
Please, yeah, that would be great.
So let me do that. Take it away. And again, thank you for being here.
Thank you all for having me. Really appreciate it. And Lou, I definitely hear those concerns. And I know we only have a little bit of time left, so I'm going to kind of speed through my slides. I don't want to bore you too much with the presentation, but I do want to make sure that I'm hitting on kind of the most important points of this proposal and make sure that I'm addressing your all specific concerns. And so, feel free to jump in and stop me if you have specific questions while I'm going through this. And I'll stop about halfway through and just see if there's any questions or anything I can clarify. So want to start just with our objectives with this update. The reason that we are pursuing this update now is that the cabaret code has not been updated in many, many decades, and there are lots of pieces of it that are outdated. It still has a dance hall license. It's in our amusements code. So this is an update to our cabaret and our amusement code. It still has a dance hall license that's a relic of the 1920s, and no one gets it anymore. And so it's really time for an update. And we wanted to use this opportunity to both improve safety in Denver's nightlife economy. The cabaret license in particular just doesn't have much in the way of specific safety and security requirements for those businesses. And so that's something that we want to address through this update. And then, kind of complementary to that, we'd like to take the opportunity to reduce overregulation of entertainment. There's lots of types of entertainment that are addressed by both the cabaret code and the amusement code that are low impact, low risk to the community, things like lawn games and axe throwing and ambient background music, just lots of types of entertainment that we're not really focused on. And so we want to reduce some overregulation and see where we can make it easier for businesses to thrive in Denver while maintaining all of the protections that make Denver's nightlife scene vibrant, safe, and thriving. So that's what we're aiming for. I will say that, we aren't under the impression that we're getting it perfect this time around. We're trying to, do something new and different with this update, but we're committed to coming back and making adjustments and tweaks where we need to. So this is certainly not like the be all end all of what this will look like over the next few years. So I want to kind of address that one objective about reducing overregulation first, and then talk about the safety components next. So for those who aren't familiar, this is our current licensing framework that's in place. Cabaret licenses are issued to businesses that also have a liquor license. The cabaret license itself is not a liquor license. It's the license to offer some type of entertainment in addition to your liquor license. And there are 7 types of cabaret licenses. And then we also have amusements, dance halls, and social rooms. Those are all in a different chapter. They also allow for different types of entertainment, but they're not tied to a liquor license like the cabaret license is. So this is about 14 different license types that we are looking to consolidate into just 3 license types under this proposed framework. What the new framework would do is have 3 types of licenses. The first is the limited entertainment license. Second is a nightlife entertainment license. And then finally, the adult entertainment license. So live entertainment is what this really centers on rather than entertainment broadly. Our definition in the ordinance of live entertainment includes live music, live performances, including performances by a DJ or a dance floor. And then adult entertainment is, pretty straightforward. It just includes performances by adult entertainers. A limited entertainment business would be allowed to offer live entertainment before and up until midnight. And then on up to 12 occasions per year, they could extend those hours to 2 a.m. And they would have to notify the neighborhood and notify our department 72 hours in advance of when they plan to do that, so that we can plan our enforcement efforts around that. The nightlife entertainment license would be for businesses that offer live entertainment past midnight and do so more than 12 times a year. The nightlife entertainment license comes with enhanced safety and security requirements. And because of that, this license allows the business to offer entertainment until 4 a.m. A common misconception is that they are required to offer entertainment until 4 a.m. That's not the case. It just allows them that option. And then the adult entertainment license, similarly, they can offer adult entertainment until 4 a.m. and are also subject to enhanced safety requirements. So I talked a little bit about reducing licensing, really just looking at areas where, the entertainment being offered is pretty low impact. And those types of places that are listed there on the right, things like trivia at a brewery, movie theaters, ice rinks, gyms, all of those have some type of licensing requirement currently just to offer that type of entertainment. And so under this proposal, they would no longer be required to get a license for that. I want to spend a little bit of time here because I have a feeling this is where you all are the most interested. The current application process for the cabaret license requires a mandatory hearing upon every cabaret license application. The way that this is working now, most applications are uncontested at the time of the hearing. So over 95% of our hearings are only attended by the applicant. Residents don't show up to oppose or support or comment on the application at all. And so that means that we are hiring a hearing officer, city attorneys are attending the hearing on behalf of the city, and then the applicant is spending typically between $5,000 and $10,000 for legal representation at that hearing. And we also cannot vacate or cancel a mandatory hearing, even if the business comes to a good neighbor agreement with an RNO and the RNO says, we have no issue, we support this. We still have to hold that hearing because it is mandatory in the code. Currently in the code, the community only has 30 days between the notice of the hearing and the hearing itself to decide if they want to weigh in, pursue a GNA, prepare for the hearing. And then if they need more time, they have to request a continuance from us. And so that part of the process also is a little clunky and not working very well. So this is all the current state of things that we are trying to address and reduce the burden both for community groups and for applicants, and also just have better stewardship of public resources as the city. So what we're proposing in this ordinance is implementing a mostly discretionary hearing process for entertainment licenses. So for these new license types, starting next year when the ordinance takes effect, and then also implementing that discretionary process for cabaret licenses once the bill passes. So this year we would implement that for cabarets. And then, when we shift to this new entertainment licensing model, the discretionary process would be in place for those as well. And under that discretionary process, the director is required to grant a hearing upon receipt of relevant and substantial requests for a hearing, but it's not automatic like it is now with cabarets. And so this is a process we have shifted to for both liquor and marijuana licenses over the past year. And it would look pretty similar with cabaret or with entertainment licenses. I will say, I say mostly discretionary because part of the ordinance will require DLCP, our agency, to make rules to determine circumstances in which hearings for entertainment licenses would be mandatory. And so we'll embark on a public rulemaking process later this year, if the ordinance passes, to figure out what those circumstances would be, where there would actually still be mandatory hearings for entertainment licenses. So under this discretionary model, the neighborhood will have 30 days just to decide if they want to request a hearing. So we would send notice of the application to the RNO, to the city council offices, and then they have to post, the business has to post notice at the premises. Then there's 30 days to decide if you want to request a hearing. If you do request a hearing and one is granted, then you have another 30 days until the hearing happens. So you have 30 days to request and then 30 days to prepare for the hearing. So this is providing neighborhoods more time to engage in that process. I know that, RNOs don't always meet every single month. And so providing just a little bit more time for everyone to get their ducks in a row and engage in this process and potentially pursue a GNA, hopefully will be valuable. It also allows us to vacate the hearing if the requesting party decides, we've come to a GNA, we don't want to go to a hearing, we can now request, or we can cancel that hearing under this discretionary model. And then, the hope is that this frees up city resources so that we can focus more of our efforts on enforcement and discipline rather than spending a lot of our hearing resources holding uncontested needs and desires hearings. Quickly, just want to touch on a few resources that we've been working on recently. First, one thing that you'll see in the ordinance is that applicants for entertainment licenses will be required to provide evidence of community support from residents of the neighborhood with their application. So that's just to submit the application. That could be a GNA, it could be petitions, but it has to be from actual residents of the neighborhood. We also have a public dashboard of applications that are in that request period. So you can, as RNO members, you would receive notification of those applications, but you can also check that dashboard if you'd like to. And then we have a hearing request form, which has just a couple of questions to help RNOs, submit a request for a hearing that contains all the information that we need. And then I won't go through the rest of these, but hopefully they will be helpful. I do want to address a couple of things, Lou, that you said related to good neighbor agreements and conditions on the license. When we transition these cabaret licenses to the new entertainment license, be it the limited, the nightlife, or the adult entertainment licenses, any conditions that are currently on the cabaret license would automatically transfer to the new type of license. So if you've negotiated a GNA with a business and any of those conditions that are legal and enforceable have been put on the license, those would be transferred to the new license type as well without you having to go back through that process.
Quick question though.
Yeah, sure.
Since our GNAs include, so remember, we don't get to put everything in the GNA on the license, but our GNAs speak specifically to a license. So it seems to me that they shouldn't be granted a license, even if you put the restrictions on, unless they come back to us and do a new GNA. Because all of a sudden, the rest of the provisions on that GNA don't apply anymore. And it makes it really difficult, and it basically washes out what we've always been told, which is you guys can enforce your own GNA. And so, and we have a lot of people in this neighborhood who probably, sponsor an action if we actually had somebody that was really problematic. But by taking this position, we just move over those things. You're washing out our GNAs from a legal perspective. And I would say you need to talk to the city attorney about it, because I think they need to start all over again, and that they don't get that unless they reapply completely, unless they do a new GNA. I mean, that just it doesn't seem like they get to just escape the GNA by transferring those few limited things over.
Sure, that's a good point, and I can take it back to our city attorney's office. I myself am not an attorney, so I don't want to speak too much about private contracts and contract law and all of those things, but I can certainly flag it for our city attorneys and
I have one other question. So that while I've got you here, but that's a really big one for us because we have a lot of them. We have a lot of those. And everyone says, oh, your contracts are your contracts. We don't get in the middle of your private contracts. This is getting in the middle of our private contracts. So if they're going to bust open our private contracts, we need another full go at it. And then we also, for all of those, and this may not apply, to our regular liquor licenses. We have a lot of restaurants that don't have the cabaret. They have just a liquor license. So if they're going to start applying for a cabaret, because in your slides, and it still is fuzzy to me, if somebody has music piped through and it's outside, we get a GNA for each one of those, and we talk about how much music, and sometimes you have one patio next to another one. If they're both blasting out different music, it's problematic for the whole shopping district. Nobody wants to be bombarded by that, especially, people my age. So if when we apply for liquor licenses, I want you to just say a little bit about that process, because it was always a needs hearing.
Yeah, and that will still be the same for liquor licenses. So this ordinance is not going to be requiring a license for ambient or background music. So if it's being played from a Spotify playlist or however they're doing it, as long as it's not live music or being played by a DJ, an entertainment license is not required. That does not exempt them from the requirement for the liquor license. And the needs and desires hearing is still in place for the liquor license. We have moved to that discretionary process though.
But we
And so
just,
you can,
if we, so that just means any new restaurant that has outdoor space or those doors that open or the big windows that open, we have to request a hearing at
yes,
each
and
one of
and
those.
you can request a hearing for every application if you'd like to. The the bar for us to grant the hearing is that the requests are relevant and substantial. And what that means is that the requests are related to a reason that we could deny the license. So it has to be related to a cause for denial. It can't be, we don't like the type of music they're going to be playing because we can't deny the license based on that. But if there are, relevant reasons why you have concerns about the license, related to reasons we could deny it, then the hearing would be granted.
So let me ask you, the reason that we request we haven't done one under this new one. And a lot of times, if the lawyers I've worked with 15 times, they'll just tell me we're applying for one. So, and we do a GNA. But if I request one and say, we enter into these because we have these typical restrictions that go on the license, but we also have restrictions on sound that would be emanating from the building. Again, we're not trying to operate as long as they stay under the noise ordinance and they close their windows and doors. It's not outside blasting across Columbine where Councilwoman Sawyer's mother lives. But if we just say we're worried about noise, is that enough?
And I will just add, Abby, I think that part of the sort of concern with even doing the change to a discretionary hearing is that what it does, it sort of undermines the neighborhood organization's ability to hold the license applicant to a good neighbor agreement, right? What impetus, what incentive does a license applicant have to come to the table and have a conversation about creating a good neighbor agreement with a registered neighborhood organization if their license is not contingent on that hearing where the neighborhood organization says we have had a conversation and we have proved that we have the license, that we have a GNA, and so we are not going to oppose this license. Like what it does is sort of undermine that process. And that's why I said earlier in my comments, it puts the onus on the victims to protect themselves, even because if I were a business owner, I wouldn't see any reason to come to the table and create a GNA limiting my abilities to do anything as a business owner. And now I don't have to with that change to a discretionary hearing. So I just want to flag that as well, because I think that's sort of the real world on the ground implication of what we're talking about here. Thanks for letting me interrupt.
All right. What other questions do you all have?
We'll let
Or
you
should
go
I
on now. We'll
continue
probably
on?
have some more at the end.
Okay, that's fine. I want to make sure we get through some of these safety pieces as well.
I just want to reinforce what the councilwoman said, because we're going through that right now. We're dealing with a licensee who has no incentive to sign a GNA, although he has said, 4 or 5 separate occasions, "Oh, I'm going to sign it. I'm going to sign it. I'm going to sign it." I think he's waiting for this law to pass. Potentially, I don't know. He may have other reasons why he's not doing it. But yeah, it's important that businesses have a reason to sign a GNA. Otherwise, they tend to avoid it, particularly in license situations.
And have you all requested it? Is that a liquor license?
He had a liquor license and a running operation in the neighborhood, and he got an administrative hearing, which the neighborhood never heard about. No one ever got any notification that there was going to be an administrative hearing. At least I didn't.
Neither did the council office.
Yeah. And so Now, as a consequence, it was just declared a fait accompli. You know, I want to say something. We don't have anything against this person. He's been operating in the neighborhood for a long time, generally done a good job relative to other people. But our concern is that if he sells, okay, and he knows this, I think this is why he's delaying. He said that's his concern. If he sells, then it makes it easier to sell if he doesn't have a GNA that goes with the land. And yeah, so that's what we're really looking for.
And I will just clarify here, Bill, that's right. There's a liquor license, but there is also a cabaret license because they do
Yeah,
live music events at this location. And so they do
yeah,
fall under a cabaret license as well.
yeah. My apologies. I meant that he had a liquor license and then added the cabaret license to it.
Mhm. Okay. Yep, that's all good feedback, and it's feedback that we've heard before and from other RNOs is, the feedback that we have heard similar to this vein is just the nuance of the relationship between RNOs and businesses. You can still request the hearing under this model, right? And so it's in our view, pretty similar, whether or not the hearing has been pre-scheduled, there could still be a hearing if you have these 30 days when the application is noticed to you all to approach the business, or the business can approach you, however works in the specific scenario, and decide can we reach a good neighbor agreement. If not, let's request a hearing, and then you have 30 additional days before the hearing to prepare for that and prepare your case and your argument. I understand that that's potentially not ideal. And so we've certainly heard that. We've heard that feedback. And so to address that, there's an amendment in the bill that's coming that will require us to make rules. And I know that's not always satisfactory to everyone, but to make rules about what circumstances would require a mandatory hearing on every application. And so I don't want to presuppose anything about what that rulemaking process will bear out. I think we want to hear more feedback from you all and re-engage with you all during that rulemaking process later this year if the ordinance does pass, to figure out what those circumstances are. So is it proximity to residential uses? Is it density of businesses, of entertainment businesses in a certain area? What should be the trigger that means, okay, if we receive an application in this area because it has met this threshold or this trigger, that the hearing will be mandatory anyway. And so there is still an opportunity for mandatory hearings to happen. I just can't speak with a lot of clarity about what that will look like without having gone through the rulemaking process.
Abby, I really appreciate you saying that. I'm just going to jump in here because I think my residents, I know what my residents feel. And I want to just say that what you just said is really concerning to me on behalf of my residents. And the reason for that is because not every RNO in Denver has Lou Raiders. Not every RNO in Denver has someone who is an attorney, who has the ability and the understanding of the way the administrative processes work to be able to represent the neighborhood in the same way that Cherry Creek North does. And that is expecting a group of volunteers who are, that's what our neighborhood organizations are, right? Expecting a group of volunteers to have the savvy to do it themselves or the dollars to hire someone to represent them is unfair. And I think that is the challenge here, because that is the space where you are asking the victims to educate themselves, represent themselves, or pay for someone else to represent them, even if this does have a mandatory hearing associated with it. And I think that is the challenge here that my residents are voicing. And I just want to make that point again.
Yeah, it's a good
Amanda,
one.
thank you. Amanda, thank you for being a voice for us. Because even from my perspective, this is it's like we're searching for problems to inflict upon ourselves here as a city. And I understand we have to get some things cleared up, but there's a reason we have these good neighbor agreements. There's a reason why businesses can coexist next to residential units, and we can have this great neighborhood and this harmonious activity. And now, we're going down another path that is just very concerning, I think, for a lot of us. So thank you for sticking up for us on this, Amanda.
Yeah, I think some of the things in the plan law are probably good. Just the requirement that you have a GNA is a step forward. There are a lot of good things about it, but as it stands, and as I listen to others speak, Lou and our councilwoman Amanda, that it is becoming concerning.
So I do just want to clarify, there's not a requirement that they get a GNA. There's a requirement that the business get evidence of community support, which could include a GNA. We can't require people to get GNAs, but it could also include petitions. It can include a letter.
And they pay
Oh.
petition, people to go out and get signatures. I mean, so
Yeah,
it's
well,
not like they come to a neighborhood meeting and say, what do you all think? Now, in this area, most people say if it's a restaurant, we want to go have, spend an inordinate amount of money to have dinner in these restaurants. And it'd be nice to have a glass of wine or a cocktail with it, right? So most people say, sure, we want that. What we don't want is the stuff that makes Cherry Creek like Lodo. We're
Mhm.
just too different. And I have a real problem, and I think Councilwoman made this really clear, is that, um, this is making everything same, and it's not. And we have to, I do think it diminishes the ability of neighbors to come together. And I mean, you can ask Richard and anybody at the bid. We are their best supporters. We are their customers. We are their advocates. We are the ones who go down and make sure that hopefully we don't shop on Amazon. We go down and of course some of us do sometimes, but go buy that gift at the small business, support those businesses, eat at those restaurants and support them. So I think those restaurants, for the most part, those restaurants understand that delicate balance, but to have to use those relationships to override a policy that doesn't respect those relationships is difficult because it takes away that impetus to continue to work together, especially if you've got a lot of out of town operators. Chris?
Yeah, so maybe this is a dumb question. I have read the policy over, but not necessarily as carefully as maybe I should have. In what way, are there any ways in which the policy, whether in process or, indirectly through factors like density, differentiates between a place like Lodo and a place like Cherry Creek? Is it literally exactly the same process that businesses would go through if they're a block from Union
So the ordinance,
in the heart of residential Cherry Creek?
oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You cut out there for a second, so I thought you were done. The ordinance doesn't differentiate between specific neighborhoods itself, and that's, I would say, by design. Because it takes a long time to get through the city council process. It takes a ton of engagement. It takes a ton of work. And we're not scared of doing that work, but it does take a lot of time, right? And so neighborhoods change and the character of neighborhoods changes and the types of businesses that are there. I mean, look at 16th Street. It's changed so much over the past decade or so. And so what applied to 16th Street a decade ago might not be relevant today. And so where we want to try and make some of those differentiations is through the administrative rulemaking process. And that's a public rulemaking process that we would engage in as the Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection. That's in accordance with Chapter 2 of the Denver Revised Municipal Code. So there's requirements relating to public notice of that rulemaking process. the fact that we have to have a public hearing on those rules to take feedback, and then just our own internal processes that we go through with rulemaking. We like to do a lot of extensive stakeholder engagement. That's why I'm here tonight. We want to make sure that we're hearing from everybody who might have an interest. And so through that rulemaking process, that's a little bit less time intensive and resource intensive than the city council process. And the reason I say that and the reason that that's relevant here is because it allows us to be a little bit more flexible. So as neighborhoods change, as things shift, if there's some reason why we need to have, for example, mandatory hearings for Lodo, and then businesses kind of are saturated in Lodo, they start popping up in other neighborhoods, maybe in Cherry Creek, and so we need to have mandatory hearings in Cherry Creek. We have more flexibility through the rulemaking process to make those tweaks and adjustments than we do in the city council process, in our opinion. Of course, Councilwoman Sandoval may have another opinion about that, but that's the reason that the ordinance doesn't differentiate specific neighborhoods and specific requirements for different parts of the city. That's something that I think we would be looking to do, not just for, mandatory versus discretionary hearings, but for safety and security requirements, which I haven't gotten to, and we don't need to get into a ton of detail there, but we would be also looking to do some rulemaking to scale safety and security requirements based on, the size of businesses, maybe, the density of businesses, like a place like Lodo may need to have heightened requirements versus places that have fewer safety concerns. So that's a long-winded way of saying, no, the ordinance doesn't differentiate. It's pretty much all the same across the board. It does give us the authority to make those differentiations in rule.
And what does that take? So if this does pass, as Councilwoman said she fears it might, but I mean, this is enough of concern that you might have lots of people in city council that night. And we probably will, try to take some positions on this. Just expressing these concerns. What does it take to get the rulemaking started, and how long does that process take? When you said it's less cumbersome than going to city council, it's only less cumbersome if you can actually get somebody to pay attention to it and do it. And that's not always easy.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the municipal code requires that if we are going to do an administrative rulemaking process, we have to, at a minimum, have a public hearing and present the rule changes or the proposed rules and take public comment. And at a minimum, we have to post public notice of that rulemaking hearing at least 20 days in advance. Those are the bare minimum requirements. Our general practice is that we post notice of rules of a rulemaking hearing at least 30 days in advance to give people at least a month to review them and decide if they want to come and make a comment. Because this is a pretty extensive rulemaking that we'll have to do for this first round, because there are quite a few things that we'll be looking to make rules about. Our plan is to have some specific rulemaking work groups with folks who are interested in specific topics. So, security and weapons screening and video surveillance and all those security things will have their own sort of expertise and group of stakeholders involved. I think mandatory hearings will have, a specific group of stakeholders involved who are interested in that. And then have a handful of work group meetings throughout the rest of the year to flesh out those requirements. Once those rules are adopted, we're aiming for, by the end of this year. After that, it's a much quicker process to make tweaks to the rules. So if we wanted to adjust one little thing here or there, it is just that 20-day notice ahead of the rulemaking hearing. And so we have quite a bit more flexibility in terms of timing and in terms of being able to be nimble and respond to things while still fulfilling our public notice requirements.
Thank you.
I don't know how much time you all have. I can keep going, or we can just I can answer any other questions.
Why don't you keep going? We have another 11 minutes.
Okay.
If we're judicious, we'll get through your slide presentation, and then maybe you could send me the slide presentation so I would have it.
Yep, I definitely will. So the second objective that I mentioned at the beginning is improving safety in the nightlife economy. I'll kind of speed through these, but basically we're putting some specific requirements in the ordinance for entertainment businesses that aren't in the cabaret code at all now. And so the hope is to put some of these requirements on the licenses to prevent some of the disorderly conduct and some of the safety issues we see around entertainment businesses, and not have to do quite as much of that, putting those conditions and requirements and restrictions on the license retroactively as part of a disciplinary process. So one thing that you'll see in the ordinance is that nightlife businesses will be responsible for preventing disorderly conduct and unlawful conduct on and around the premises. Nightlife and adult entertainment businesses will have to have a security plan that's approved by our department. That is not just a sort of a free form. Here's what we plan to do. Our plan is to, again, go through a public rulemaking process and make specific rules about what those security plans have to entail, scaled based on, different types of business models, different sizes of business models. And then businesses would have to fill out a security plan, attesting that they're going to do XYZ that they're required to do and have it approved by us. Weapons will be prohibited at nightlife and adult entertainment businesses, and they will have to take reasonable steps to prevent weapons on the premises. Again, this is just for those two higher classes of licenses. So for the nightlife and adult, this is not for the limited entertainment licenses that are only offering entertainment before midnight. And then a couple of requirements around video surveillance and books and record keeping that are meant to aid with our investigatory needs and DPD's investigatory needs.
Can I pause you right there? And Richard has his hand up, so I'd love to get his question.
I would absolutely love to know what kind of conversation will the city or the venue be having with the RNOs when it comes to that security and safety plan, and will we get to see it first? And then, items like keeping people, 25 yards maybe away from a business is great in downtown, but when that 25 yards is somebody's doorstep in a residential community, that doesn't feel right. So that's why I think seeing the security plans from the RNO's perspective would be helpful.
Yeah, that's a good question. Just want to flag that it's, I kind of sped through this slide, but the requirement is to prevent disorderly congregation within 25 feet of points of ingress and egress. Just to clarify, it's not yards. That would be more significant.
But in Cherry Creek, that's, as he said, that's somebody's doorstep. Right. But also is, that we have a business improvement district. The district has its own rules and requirements. And I don't know how those could overlap, whether because this impacts the district, their security plans and those kinds of things. So, Richard, do you have any idea how that would impact your ability to function normally?
It would definitely impact us. We have a later nightlife. It's definitely going to be more calls, more calls for service, and more disturbances, I would think. And I just, in my perspective, I'll set the table was, my first job here was managing the Denver pavilions and, back when we had a lot of nightclubs. So I've dealt with the nightclubs, and I've dealt with the downtown issues, and just that fear of it coming to a residential community. It's real. And I think the security plan should be required to go through. If there's an RNO in the neighborhood, they should be able to see it and see what's going on. And 25, all you're doing is you're pushing a problem from in front of the business to 25 feet away in front of somebody else's business or out in the right of way. And that just doesn't, it's concerning.
Yeah, that's helpful feedback. And that's a great suggestion about having some RNO input on security plans, or at least having them, available and having some visibility to those. So I can take that back to the team. And those are things that we want to hear from people, right, in our rulemaking process around security plans. We want to hear from the businesses. We also want to hear from security experts and from the community about what should those entail to make sure that everybody's best interests are being met. This is an important one for us. as you were kind of alluding to earlier, Lou, about just having trouble finding one person to talk to at the business, we have that issue as well. And so nightlife and adult entertainment businesses would be required to register at least one manager with us. This is the person who has ongoing day-to-day operational control over the business. And then that person has to be available for response to the premises during business hours. So they don't have to be there during all business hours, but if DPD calls, they need to be able to get to the premises in a timely manner and respond. And then part of this is also addressing issues with promoters. I don't know how much of an issue this is in y'all's neck of the woods, but in some parts of the city, we do have issues with third-party promoters who take over businesses, kind of run them unsafely, and then try to escape accountability by saying, I'm just the promoter. I just promote events here. I don't have anything to do with this business. And so this ordinance would make it unlawful for those third-party promoters to take operational control of the business. And that's, really meant to address those issues with promoters. And then the most, I think, talked about portion of this proposal is allowing entertainment until 4 a.m. Again, alcohol service and consumption would continue to stop at 2 a.m. That's under state law. We don't have any power to change that with this ordinance. This would just allow nightlife and adult entertainment businesses to continue offering entertainment until 4 a.m. The intent here is to help steady the flow of people who are leaving nightlife businesses rather than having everyone leave sort of between 1:30 and 2 a.m. and then, reduce violent incidents that happen when those crowds are all leaving at the same time. And we have heard from some businesses, we're not interested in this. We don't want to offer entertainment until 4 a.m. It doesn't make business sense for us to do that after alcohol service ends. And then we've heard from other businesses that are interested in getting into more of a sober nightlife space, or they're offering some type of alternative, entertainment and fun for people to have past liquor service. And so we just want to, give folks the option to pursue that if they want to and if it makes sense for their business. Quickly want to touch on, this is just, the outreach that we've done. The timeline here, I know that that's probably top of mind. We did bring this proposal to City Council's Finance and Business Committee yesterday, June 23rd. The committee voted to move it forward to the full body of City Council. The first reading of this ordinance would be July 13th, I believe. That's the plan anyway. And then the second reading would be July 20th. I will say there will be a couple of amendments to the current bill draft between now and first reading. And then if the ordinance passes and the mayor signs it, first of all, we would implement the discretionary hearing process for cabaret licenses as soon as possible this year. And then also this year, we would kick off that public rulemaking process, hoping to wrap that up before the holiday season to make sure that people have plenty of bandwidth to participate and weigh in. And then, we would do all of our operational implementation prep work. And then the new entertainment licensing code would become effective April 1st of next year. So, and current cabaret licenses would be able to continue operating through their expiration date, even if that falls after April 1st next year. So that is, that's it. I mean, I'm happy to take any more questions. I will send this slide deck to Lou, as well as information about where to find the ordinance itself. And, please feel free to submit comments directly to me. I'll put my email in the chat so that you can reach out to me. And yeah, any other questions?
I want to thank you for coming and presenting to us. We're 2 minutes from ending, and we run a pretty tight ship in terms of time frame. And so we really do appreciate it. And I know that these concerns are emotional. They are personal for us because these are businesses that we love, and we don't want to have problems with things that are, all of a sudden we have another operator running something that just the neighborhood really does not support. So, and we want to keep this very different than downtown or even, there are parts of the city, Lodo and other parts of the city where maybe there's, frankly, a different vibe. And this ought to be a city that honors the differences in neighborhoods. So I would let Councilwoman Sawyer have the last say and then we'll sign off. But thank you for being here and I'll watch for the slide deck.
Yeah, Abby, thank you so much. I did just want to follow up on the issue in Cherry Creek East, because I think it's unique to the neighborhood, not unique across the city, but unique to the neighborhood and a point of significant concern, especially given that there seems to be an impasse with the Good Neighbor Agreement. So, Abby, I'm wondering, is it you that the Cherry Creek neighbors should reach out to directly to have a conversation about what comes next, or what is their next step? What would you recommend that they do specific to that one issue?
That's a good question, Councilwoman. Let me circle back on that email chain that you shared with us and make sure that they get connected with the right people. It's probably not me specifically, but I want to make sure that I connect them with the right people directly.
That would be fantastic if
Okay.
you could do that. Thanks.
Perfect. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Bill, look for that email, because
thank you.
Bill's on that email chain as well. So
Perfect.
Yeah.
I'll circle back on it.
great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody, thank you very much. 6:31. See you at the Arts Festival. See you tomorrow night at the Cherry Creek 150. Enjoy it. And thank you again for being here. Good night, everyone.